The vending machine hums at 6 in the morning. Nobody's around, no manager, no employee badge, no storefront with your name on it. Just a machine standing in a hospital hallway doing something you didn't have to show up for. A nurse walks past, taps her card, grabs a coffee, walks away. 45 seconds. That's it. You're asleep when it happens. You don't even know it happened. Not yet. But somewhere on your phone, a number just moved. Not much. $2.50. Not a headline. Not a milestone. Just proof. Proof that money can move without you standing next to it. This isn't a business people brag about. No ribbon cutting, no grand opening photos, no one's filming this for Instagram. But 8 of these, quiet, boring, forgettable, can reshape what your life actually looks like. You just have to notice the ones everyone else is walking past. You put down $2,000. That's it. That's the whole company. No storefront, no logo, no employee handbook. Just one machine, sitting in a hallway at a regional hospital in Ohio, humming next to a water fountain nobody notices either. You picked the spot yourself. Not because it looked nice, because at 7 in the morning, 140 nurses walk past that exact hallway on their way to a shift change. You didn't build a product, you bought a location. That's the whole trick, and it took you 3 weeks to understand it. The first month you make $190. You do the math. It's almost nothing. You think about giving up. Then you notice something. You didn't do anything that second month. You didn't restock more often. You didn't advertise. The number came in anyway, $210 this time. The machine doesn't know your name. It doesn't care if you're on vacation. It just sells to whoever walks by, whether you're standing there or not. You start checking your phone differently. Not out of excitement, out of curiosity. Like checking the weather. A guy named Trevor, the maintenance contractor for the building, mentions there's another wing on the 3rd floor. No machine there yet. You ask how many staff work on that floor. 90, he says. You order a second machine that week. Here's a moment you don't expect. Your old coworker Marissa asks what you've been up to. You say you bought a vending machine. She laughs, not mean, just surprised, and asks if that's like a real business. You don't have a good answer. You just say it pays for itself. She changes the subject to her promotion. You don't bring it up again after that. Not because you're embarrassed. Because you notice the conversation doesn't need you to defend it. The machine doesn't need her approval either. It just keeps running. This is where it starts to feel less like luck and more like a pattern. You're not selling snacks. You're renting attention that already exists. Foot traffic, somebody else built that you just stood a box next to. Here's the part nobody puts in the pitch deck. You don't feel rich. You feel quiet. Like something is running in the background of your life that used to require you to be present, and now doesn't. You check the app again before bed. $40 today. You don't remember what you sold. You don't need to. The product can be copied. The location can't. The machine hums at 6 in the morning, whether you're there or not. That's the whole business. That's also the whole lesson. 2 machines become 4. 4 becomes 7. You're not thinking about hospitals anymore. You're thinking about water. There's a purified water station outside a laundromat in a strip mall in San Antonio. 1/4 of a gallon. Fill your own jug. You've seen these your whole life and never once wondered who owned them. Now you do. You find out the laundromat owner doesn't own the water machine. A separate guy does. Just leases the 4 square feet of sidewalk space for $90 a month. That's it. That's the entire relationship. You start driving around on Saturdays, not shopping, scouting, laundromats, apartment complexes, and gas stations near neighborhoods where you notice people carrying empty jugs on foot. You install your first one outside a complex with around 200 units. The property manager, a woman named Denise, doesn't ask many questions. She just wants to know if you're insured and if it'll get graffitied. You say yes to the first and you don't have an answer for the second. It gets graffitied in month 3. You paint over it. It keeps running. Here's what's different about this one compared to the vending machines. Snacks are a want. Water is not. People don't decide whether they need water today. They just need it, the same way they needed it yesterday and the way they'll need it next year. No matter what phone they're using or what's trending online. You stop thinking about products that are exciting. You start thinking about products nobody can opt out of needing. You weren't building a water business. You were betting on the one thing that never goes out of style: thirst. That shift changes how you look at the whole city. You stop seeing restaurants and coffee shops when you drive. You start seeing foot traffic, water access, and empty patches of concrete near an entrance. Your dad calls to ask how the vending thing is going. You tell him it's not vending anymore, it's water now too. There's a pause on the line. He asks if you're doing okay for money, in that careful voice parents use when they think you might not want to say. You tell him you're fine. You don't tell him the numbers because the numbers still feel too small to be proud of and too real to explain in one phone call. By month 8, the water machines alone bring in about $1,100 a month, combined. Not life-changing, but it didn't cost you a single hour of standing behind a counter to get there. You've noticed something else too. You've stopped checking your accounts out of worry. You check them out of habit now, the way some people check the score of a game they're not even that invested in. Some things people want, some things people need. You stop chasing the first one. The machines don't know it's raining. They don't know it's Sunday. They just sit there quietly necessary, waiting for the next person with an empty jug. Somewhere around month 10, you stop buying machines. Not because it stopped working, because you ran into a wall you didn't expect. Trucks. Every new machine means driving out, loading water, unloading snacks, patching graffiti, coordinating with a guy who fixes card readers. You're not managing money anymore. You're managing logistics. You mentioned this to a friend from college, Adrian, who builds websites for a living. He's not impressed by the machines exactly, but he asks one question that sticks with you. He asks what takes up the most time that isn't the actual selling. You tell him it's tracking, which machines need restocking and when. You've been doing it on a spreadsheet, guessing half the time. He builds you something small, not an app store app. Just a simple tool. You type in a machine's ID, it tells you the last time it was serviced and flags the ones that are probably running low based on average sell-through. Took him about 2 weeks. It saves you maybe 4 hours a week. You don't think much of it. Then a guy who owns 11 vending machines across 2 counties hears about it from Trevor, the same maintenance contractor from year 1. He asks if he can use it. You say sure, and almost don't charge him. Adrian stops you. Charge him $40 a month, he says. It costs you nothing extra to let him use it. The tool doesn't get more tired if 2 people use it instead of 1. That sentence changes something for you. The water machine only pours water when you fill it. The vending machine only sells what's inside it. But this doesn't run out. It doesn't need restocking. It just exists, and it works the same whether 1 person uses it or 100 do. By month 14, 9 other operators are paying $40 a month for the same simple tool. You didn't sell them a dream. You sold them 4 fewer hours a week, which is really the same thing money is supposed to buy in the first place: your hours back. You notice you've started thinking in a new unit. Not dollars, hours saved. A vending machine makes you money while you sleep. This makes other people's time while you sleep, and somehow that pays you too. Your mom asks what you actually do now, since it's clearly not just machines anymore. You try to explain it, and it comes out clumsy, something about software, subscriptions, other business owners. She nods as she understands. She doesn't fully. Neither did you 6 months ago. Build it once, let 1,000 people rent it forever. The tool doesn't know if it's being used by 1 person or 50. It just runs, quietly, in the background, the way everything worth building eventually does. A contractor named Boone calls you on a Tuesday. Not about water, not about snacks. He needs a concrete saw for 11 days. A job in Tulsa that got delayed and now has to move fast. New the saw runs about $4,000. He doesn't want to own one. He wants to use one once and hand it back. You don't have a concrete saw, but you know a guy who does. An equipment yard 2 towns over, run by a man named Odell, who's owned it since the 80s. And has more machines sitting idle than running. You ask Odell what he'd charge to rent it out for those 11 days. $220 a day. You ask Boone what he'd pay. He doesn't blink. Says that's cheaper than storing the thing in his garage for a year. You don't own the saw. You just stood between two people who both needed something to move faster than paperwork usually allows. You weren't renting out equipment. You were renting out somebody else's patience for owning things they'd use twice a year. This is different from the machines. The machines are yours, sitting still, waiting. This is you noticing that somebody, somewhere, always has a tool sitting idle, and somebody else always needs that exact tool for 11 days and not a day longer. You start small, a pressure washer, a scaffold tower, a tile saw. You don't buy any of it up front. You broker it first, learn which pieces get requested the most, then buy the ones that pay for themselves fastest. The scaffold tower gets rented 9 times in its first year. At $300 a rental, it paid for itself by month 4. Everything after that is close to pure profit, minus a coat of paint and the occasional missing bolt. Here's the sentence that sticks with you longer than any of the numbers. People don't pay for owning things. They pay for not having to. You think about your own closet, the suitcase you use twice a year, the pressure washer that sat in your garage before you started renting out to other people. You never once needed to own it. You just didn't know there was another option. Boone becomes a repeat customer. Not because you gave him a deal, because you answered the phone on a Tuesday and had the saw at his site by Thursday. That's the whole product, speed and no hassle. Your sister asks if you're still doing the vending machine thing. You tell her it's evolved, the machines, the software, now equipment. She asks, half joking, if there's anything you don't rent out at this point. You laugh, but the question sits with you longer than it should. People don't pay for what they own. They pay for what they don't have to deal with. The saw sits in Odell's yard most days, quiet, unremarkable, waiting for the next call from someone who needs it for 11 days and not a single day more. A text comes in at 11 at night. Not a customer. A guy named Foster, who runs a diner outside Nashville, got your number from Boone. A health inspector showed up unannounced that afternoon. Somebody's anonymous complaint. She found droppings near the walk-in cooler, wrote it up on the spot, and gave Foster a conditional pass. 24 hours to fix it, or she comes back Thursday morning and shuts the kitchen down. Foster isn't asking you to negotiate. He's not comparing quotes. 24 hours, one shot, and a business he's run for 11 years hanging on whether it gets fixed before she's back at that door. You don't do pest control. But you know someone who does, a licensed guy 2 counties over named Reyes, who's been doing this alone for 6 years and always says the same thing. People don't call him when it's convenient, they call him when the clock's already running out. You connect them. Reyes is on site within the hour, working past midnight. Foster pays without blinking, not because the price is low, but because the alternative isn't really a price at all. It's the diner. Here's the part that's different from everything before it. The water machine, the saw, the software, none of that depends on the clock. This does. And urgency changes what people are willing to pay. Because at 11 at night with a re-inspection at 9 a.m., the question stops being how much and becomes how fast, and are you sure? You start noticing this pattern everywhere once you know to look for it. Restaurants, hotels, a walk-in freezer that dies overnight with $4,000 of inventory inside it. The businesses that show up on nobody's schedule but the customers tend to get paid differently than the ones that don't. You bring Reyes more work, not because you're selling pest control, because you're the person who answers the phone at 11 at night and already knows who to call. Here's something you didn't expect to feel. A kind of quiet responsibility. Foster wasn't paying for chemicals near a cooler. He was paying for a business he built for 11 years, which didn't end on a Thursday morning over something he didn't even know was there. You start to understand that the actual product, most of the time, isn't the service. It's whatever's about to be lost if nobody shows up in time. Reyes starts sending you a cut for every job that comes through you. Not because you asked, but because he understands you're the reason his phone rang before someone else's did. Your roommate, half asleep, asks who keeps texting you this late. You say it's work. He asks what kind of work happens at 11 p.m. You don't really have a short answer for that anymore. The less time someone has to fix something, the more they'll pay to make it disappear. Thursday morning, the inspector comes back. She checks the same corner, signs off in under 2 minutes. Foster never mentions it again. Not because it didn't matter, but because it's already over, the way most disasters are the moment somebody shows up before the deadline instead of after it. Before Priya, there's a name you don't bring up much. A boutique hotel downtown, 32 rooms, your first real laundry contract. You landed it 8 months earlier, partnered with the same facility, and felt like the whole business had finally leveled up. Then a new general manager took over. Corporate wanted 3 vendor quotes for everything. Standard policy, nothing personal. You lost the contract to somebody $12 a month cheaper. No warning call. Just an email, 4 lines long thanking you for your service. That was $1,100 a month, gone on a Tuesday, for a reason that had nothing to do with anything you did wrong. You don't have a story about bouncing back from that. There's no scene where you fix it. You just had a worse month, then a slightly less worse month. Then you picked up the phone the next time it rang, instead of sitting with what happened. Nobody applauded the recovery. There wasn't one, exactly. The number just slowly stopped being the first thing you thought about in the morning. That's the version of this business nobody puts in the highlight reel. Not every contract renews, not every relationship survives someone else's cost-cutting memo. You don't get a say in most of it. You just keep enough other things running that one cancellation doesn't take you down with it. A hotel general manager named Priya calls you in March. Not urgent this time. The opposite. Her laundry vendor is retiring. 20 years running the account, washing sheets and towels for 140 rooms, 7 days a week, and now he's done, and she needs someone reliable before summer booking season hits. You don't own a laundry facility, but by now, you know what she's actually asking for. Not somebody who's good at washing sheets, somebody who won't disappear. You partner with a facility an hour outside the city, industrial washers, the kind that run all day, owned by a woman named Ilse, who has capacity sitting unused most weeks. You bring her to the hotel, she brings the machines, you handle the contract, the invoicing, the one phone call Priya needs to make when something's wrong. The contract is for 2 years. Not 2 weeks. Not we'll see how it goes. 2 years signed with a renewal clause built in. This is the part that feels different in your chest, not just on paper. Everything before this, the machines, the software, the emergency calls, even the hotel you lost, all of it could disappear in a single email. This can't disappear that easily, because a hotel doesn't wake up one day and decide it doesn't need clean sheets. You stop thinking about this month's income. You start thinking about what's locked in for the next 24. There's a specific moment that sticks with you. You get a notification that the March invoice cleared. $6,100. You didn't do anything that day except check your phone once at a red light on your way to something unrelated. You don't tell people the number, not because you're hiding it, because saying it out loud feels like it would need an explanation you don't have the energy to give. Your old coworker Marissa, the one who laughed at the vending machine 2 years ago, posted about her new job title last week. You didn't comment. You didn't need to. Here's something you notice about yourself around this time. You've stopped checking your bank account, as it might surprise you. You check it like checking the mail. Routine. Boring. Which is, strangely, the exact feeling you were chasing this whole time without knowing it had a name. Priya renews the contract 18 months later without you asking. She just emails to confirm the new rate. That's the whole conversation. The scariest question in business isn't will this work? It's will this still be here in 2 years without me pushing it? And sometimes the honest answer is not this one. Something else will be. Somewhere, a hotel's dryers are running right now at 2 in the morning and nobody in that building is thinking about you at all. That's not a problem. That's the whole point. By now, you've got 17 people on the payroll. You didn't plan for that number. It just happened. One contract at a time. A regional office park, 4 buildings, about 600 employees combined, needs someone to handle nightly cleaning, trash, floors, restrooms, the glass at the entrance that always shows every fingerprint by Thursday. Their current vendor missed 2 nights last month. That's the whole reason they're calling you. You don't clean anything yourself. Haven't in over a year. You hire an operations manager, a woman named Cassidy, who used to run a crew for someone else and got tired of not being trusted with decisions. You give her the decisions. She runs the actual work. You run the relationships and the contracts. You didn't stop working. You just stopped being the thing the business needed to survive. This is the part that's hard to explain to people who knew you 2 years ago. You're not the guy with the vending machine anymore. You're not even really in the business day to day. You're something else now. The person the business exists around, without being the person doing the business. A client complaint comes in about a missed bathroom restock at Building 3. You don't hear about it until Cassidy's already handled it, apologized, comped a week of service, and moved on. You find out after it's already fixed. There's a strange relief in that, and a strange guilt sitting right next to the relief, because you used to be the guy answering the phone at 11 at night and now somebody else is, and you're not sure how you feel about not being needed that way anymore. Your dad asks at dinner what exactly you do all day. It's not a hostile question, he's just trying to picture it. You start explaining contracts, payroll, 4 buildings, 17 employees, and you watch his face do the thing where he's proud, but also can't quite locate you in the story anymore. You used to be the guy driving out to fix a graffitied water machine. Now you're a name on paperwork Cassidy handles better than you ever did. There's a specific kind of quiet that shows up around this level. Not loneliness exactly, more like distance. You still talk to Adrian and still get a text from Boone sometimes. But the conversations that used to be about the work are mostly about logistics now. Contracts, insurance renewals. A new building is bidding for your services next quarter. You don't miss the 11 p.m. calls. You just notice they don't come to you directly anymore, and something about that took longer to get used to than you expected. You didn't start this to build a company. You started it to stop needing permission to make $40 while you slept. Somewhere along the way, the company built itself out from under that. The lights in Building 3 are on a timer now. They come on at 6, they go off at 11. Nobody in that building has ever heard your name. Somebody asks you what you do for a living. You pause longer than the question requires. You've got machines in 3 states, a software tool that started with 9 operators and quietly picked up more without you ever pitching a single one of them. One you haven't touched the code on in 2 years. A laundry contract with Priya's Hotel, renewed twice now. A cleaning company with 17 people who've never met you in person, run by someone better at it than you ever were. A referral relationship with Reyes that still sends you a small cut every time a kitchen light stays on past midnight somewhere in Tennessee. None of it is the answer to what do you do. All of it is the answer. You stop thinking about any single piece of this as a business. It's just the weather now. Some months, the laundry contract does better. Some months, it's the cleaning company. You stop needing any one of them to work in order to be fine. A spreadsheet Adrian built shows inflow by source, updated automatically. You check it on Sundays, more like glancing at a scoreboard for a game you're not that emotionally invested in anymore. Total monthly income across everything sits around $19,000. It took years to get there. A canceled hotel contract, a graffitied machine, months of reinvesting almost everything instead of keeping it. More mistakes than anyone would put in a highlight reel. Not evenly either. Some source always dips while another climbs. You've stopped noticing which. Here's the sentence that would have meant nothing to you 8 years ago, back when a hospital hallway and $2,000 felt like the whole world. You're not running a business anymore. You're allocating attention across ones that already run themselves. Cassidy calls sometimes, not for permission, just to update you. Ilsa's facility added a second hotel client last quarter, one you've never spoken to. Reyes hired a second technician. You didn't approve any of it. You didn't need to. There's a version of you back at the vending machine in Ohio who would not recognize this. Not the money, the quiet. Back then, quiet felt like something might be wrong. Now quiet is just what it sounds like when things are working. Marissa reached out last month, asking if you had advice for a friend thinking about starting something. You didn't send a strategy. You told her the only thing that ever actually mattered: find something boring enough that nobody else wants to do it, and make sure the customer pays you again next month without you asking. She said that sounded too simple to be the whole answer. You stopped asking how much something pays. You started asking how many times it pays you before you have to ask again. Somewhere tonight, a machine hums in a hallway you've never walked through, in a building you've never seen, doing something it doesn't need you present for. It doesn't know your name. It never did. That was always the point. Right now, somewhere, a 22-year-old is designing a logo. Not for a vending machine, not for a water station outside a laundromat, for a coffee shop. The kind with imported espresso machines and a wall built just for photos, an opening day with a line out the door and 100 people holding up their phones. He hasn't heard of Boone or Rise or a hospital hallway in Ohio. He doesn't know Priya's name, or that a woman named Ilse has washers running right now that nobody's watching. There's nothing wrong with what he's building. The coffee shop isn't the mistake. It's just a different kind of business, one that depends on him showing up behind that counter, pulling shots, restocking the same shelf every morning for as long as he wants the income to keep coming. And somewhere else, nowhere special, nothing to photograph, a machine will hum in a hallway. Nobody will be standing next to it. It won't need to be. That's the whole difference. Not talent, not luck. Just which business depends on your time showing up, and which one depends on a system that shows up whether you do or not. The machine doesn't know either of their names. It never needed to. If this changed the way you think about what a business actually is, don't just watch it and move on. Tomorrow morning, look around at the hallway, the parking lot, the empty corner nobody's paying attention to. The boring opportunity is usually standing right there.